Experience the ultimate thrill, Porsche GT Track Day, where passion meets performance on some of North America's most legendary racetracks. Designed exclusively for Porsche owners, this is your chance to unleash the full potential of your vehicle in a motorsport environment. Drive the same circuits as professional racers, on the same weekend as Porsche Sprint Challenge events. Where will your Porsche take you? With limited space, every Porsche GT Track Day ensures a premium, exclusive experience. You'll get nearly 3 hours of track time, starting with reconnaissance laps, progressing through lead-follow sessions, and culminating in exhilarating open laps. Plus, strap in for heart-pounding hot laps with a professional race driver.
I thought I was fast. Didn't resemble anything that I've ever done.
Beyond the track, immerse yourself in VIP hospitality, premium viewing areas, and exclusive paddock access, where you can witness Porsche Sprint Challenge teams in action. Spots are limited. Scan the QR code now to reserve your place at Porsche GT Track Day.
We've had testing, we've had practice, and now it's coming down to where it matters. It's time for qualifying in the Porsche Sprint Challenge North America Cup Series. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth is Roush Racing driver Joey Atterbury, along with Carrera Cup North America driver Ashley Freiberg. Joey, a split qualifying means more track space, but who can capitalize on it?
Yeah, it will mean plenty of space out there for each of these, what I'm seeing, 17 GT3 Cup cars here in this first qualifying session, and yeah, plenty of room to kind of move around, spread out, and find your own little piece of heaven here at COTA.
Well, I don't think many of the drivers are going to be describing it as heaven out there, Ashley, because the one thing we've been talking about all weekend so far is the temperatures on the circuit. How difficult, when it's this hot, is it to get that flying qualifying lap?
With the heat, it doesn't take a whole lot to get your tires up to temp. So you can see this driver here actually on their out lap, driving fairly slow, just keeping the tires from sliding too much, because really once you get to the start finish, you should have your tires up to temp. So ideally you start pushing halfway through your lap, and then you're all set to start your two flyers.
So the way this will work is they will combine the times here as each series, or well, each group that they are going to have qualifying will be combined into the overall and set in the order that way. So all we will see with this first group is where everybody lines up according to Group A. Then they have Group B, Joey, and we'll start to get a feel for where they will kind of slot in amongst them. But it all works out like just normal qualifying, where you just got to get those fast 2 laps in.
Yeah, the easiest way to think about this is just one extra long qualifying session. We have Group A out on the track right now, and then we'll have Group B after we complete this, call it 25 or 20-minute run out here, and then we'll combine the times from Group A and Group B and set that grid for tomorrow's race. And it's going to be an interesting one. I think that the GT3 Cup cars always put on a great show, no matter what racetrack we're at. It doesn't matter if it was NOLA, or I'm sorry, over at Sonoma or earlier at Sebring and Spring Mountain a little bit earlier. I think here at COTA, they'll put on a good show.
And yeah, the North America Series has a lot of competitors this time around. You'll see two different colors on your timing tower up at the top. Look for the black one to be the Pro-Ams, and then the blue boxes are going to be your Masters. They're all in the 992 Cup car, so it's all the same spec vehicle that they're in. However, they won't be competing for points, as they are just classified differently according to driver license. So, as we watch the first of the laps now start to go, we wait to see who is going to get those quick times on the board. You've also got an invitational car, so you see Fens out there in the gray number 133. Obviously, that is not going to be taking anybody's points away, but will be considered in the overall order.
Just watching these cars on their first timed lap now, and you kind of see the aggression difference from when Ashley was pointing out there just kind of on their warm-up lap to now really kind of standing on it with all 500 plus horsepower up and over the hill. Where we are watching is going down to what is turn number 11 on this racetrack, watching the 261 of Herb out here, and that exit is so important. You see him climb up over those orange curbs, obviously not disrupting the car too much on that acceleration, the drive off phase, and now it's just waiting, picking out that brake marker for turn 12 down at the end of this very long straightaway.
Yeah, quite a lot of speed that they gain before they get to the brake marker down here at turn 12, where you can probably expect to see most of the pass attempts over the course of the weekend, but it's definitely not the only place where drivers can try and attack one another. So as we get already about a quarter of the way through this qualifying, slightly shorter than what we see normally. It's typically 25 minutes that they give in the Sprint Challenge Series to the driver to try and set a time, but because they've split the qualifying, they've lessened the time out here. And so far, so good. I haven't seen anything too out of sorts from Herb, but I see a few drivers now up on our timing screen. Cole Kleck, no surprise, he's currently quickest, but Caden Kelly, who has also been quick over in the Masters, on the provisional pole in that category, Joey.
Yeah, but that lap time from Kleck, very impressive. We have not seen too many cars below that 2:10 kind of lap time, and that was a 2:09.24 out of Kleck, so that's a good starting point for everybody to go and chase. And something I was noticing out of that driver, the 261 that we were just watching, and maybe Ashley can speak on this, is at COTA, there's a lot of pavement out here. You don't necessarily have to use all of it in some of those slow sections.
Yeah, for sure, especially in some of these interconnected corners. You want to start setting up for the next corner coming up. So there's definitely some areas on track that are really, really wide as well, like you going up into turn 1 on the entry there. There's a ton of track. It's very easy to want to start to creep your way to the apex a little bit early. Same thing in turn 12 as well. So definitely want to be smart with the track that you're using. And then there's some areas that you want to use some of the track limits to go way over the curb and use that white line on the outside.
Watching Tim Kesman in this green and black machine coming down to turn 12 right now. He sits third in class, but 8th as the Pro-Ams really showing him how it's done on the first lap. The top 6 have 5 of them are Pro-Am, and then Caden Kelly, the only Masters driver in amongst them at the moment. That, of course, can change around. We've definitely seen some very quick drivers from the Masters, so I wouldn't be too surprised if we saw a few of them kind of jump up amongst those top 5 overall. Remember, that is not for points paying positions once we get to the race itself, but of course, for Caden Kelly, Joey, this really helps him if he does wind up with 5 cars between himself and his next rival in class.
Yeah, when we talk about the class positioning, that would be huge for Caden Kelly, but remember, we still got the 12.5 minutes remaining here for Group A, and then of course we've got Group B still to come, so what is 17 cars on the racetrack right now will be 30 plus by the time we get to taking that green flag for race time. As see a few more of these cars. I believe this is one of the fall line cars crossing the start-finish line. Yeah,
I think that's still Tim that we're following. He was not with us for Sonoma, but has returned now after a break after Sebring. So glad to see his car on track once again. Kelly's really, who we've been talking about there on the provisional pole, has been having a good swing of fortune since Sebring. Had a 6th and 10th place those first 2 races, and then at Sonoma, a win and a third, really turning things around and try to carry that momentum here today. That is quite a bit of that inside curve. I think up through turn 8 and up through 9, drivers have definitely been abusing some of those areas all day.
I think this is Bloom in the 266 car coming down towards turn number 11 here, and just kind of echoing what you were saying, Joe. I think that these drivers are going to constantly push the track limits. It doesn't matter if it's on the entry side of things or if it's on the apex side of things, especially in that sector 1 where you just have all those corners that come one after another. You need to stay in front of everything, so a lot of times these drivers will kind of take advantage over on the apex side, and then of course through this section right here, turn number 12, I'm sure that we'll see cars run out wide just like we saw right there, but not all 4 wheels off of the racetrack. And then this is one of the slower, more technical sections here at Circuit of the Americas. I think come race time, we'll actually see quite a few different lines between defensive, attacking, trying to make those passes done here in this section.
Yeah, so many different lines available. It really does open things up if you're on the attack or defense coming through that stadium section, although it's very one line coming through the triple apexer of 16, 17, and 18, then switching back for 19 here, up and over the curb for Bloom as he takes it right out to the edge of the track limits and then down into 20. Has been renamed Andretti in recent years, in honor, of course, of the famous racing family. It's crossing the line. Bloom does improve, and it's down to a 2:11.6. That is 4th in class, so that does gain him at least 1 position.
This is the 214 car here of Trefford, kind of following Bloom along right now, and see what they can do. And this is once again leading into that sector 1. We've got a nice train of cars here, although this car that's following car, I believe this is Kesman that we were watching a little bit earlier, a little bit wide there in turn number 1, and that's always a rough thing as a driver. You look towards turn number 1, that's the corner that you got to nail, and especially when you got 20 turns here at COTA, you don't want to mess up the first one.
No, definitely not. It will set the tone in a really bad way throughout here. And speaking of which, Ashley, you kind of set a great tone for yourself at this place last year in the Sprint Challenge. I know you're up competing in Carrera Cup, but you took a victory at this track. Any secrets maybe the drivers might not know about?
Yeah, that was definitely an exciting race. Took the lead with, I think, 2 or 3 laps to go. So, I mean, ultimately, it was just really challenging in this heat. So, for me in qualifying, once I got my 2 flying laps in, I saved my tires for the race, and it really paid off towards the end of the race. So, and to your point as well, talking about being precise and on the line, turn 1 all the way down to turn 11 is all interconnected corners. So you have to be really precise and super focused as well, because if you get distracted even for a 1/10 of a second and you miss an apex, it can really, you know, make a lot of effects as you go down through the track.
And that is such a huge point about Sector 1 is that, like you said, call it from turn 1 all the way through turn 11. If you get a little bit behind in turn 3, it messes you up for turn 4, and then you're messed up for turn 5, and then you're messed up for turn 6. So just to kind of, you know, beat a dead horse, you got to stay on every single apex out here, or you will fall behind.
Yeah, absolutely. And same thing with the back half of the course as well. It's a little bit different flow. It's a little bit different technique. You have that really long carousel. A few corners where, like you were noting earlier, where you don't really use all the track. So it's just so technical, and the way you drive every corner is so different. I just really love this track for that reason.
Todd Trefford goes up to 2nd in class and 5th overall, gaining some time on Kelly. Caden Kelly and Cole Kleck have pitted their cars, so they seem to be happy with the laps they put in. And, I mean, no wonder if you're Cole. I'm just realizing he's got 1.2 seconds to the next car back, and that's Kelly. That's not even his class. It's 1.4 seconds to Therese Lalou, who's honestly doing a great job in qualifying. She usually tells us that qualifying is one of her weak points, so I think she's doing fantastic today.
Yeah, that's the number 242 car out there of Therese. So she is set down to 210.68. currently second in that Pro-Am class. Yeah, a terrific effort, and you're right, she does kind of pride herself on her racecraft. Now, there's a lot that goes on in a typical race weekend, between practice, making sure you got the vibe with the team and the car is all perfect in terms of setup and how you like to drive it out here, and then the driver, they have to go out and qualify. They have to manage that qualifying pace, and some of them, they're not great at getting, call it, 120% out of the car and really getting up on that wheel, but where they shine is that racecraft and being around other cars, picking out where they need to be, making the passes, and that's really where Therese prides herself in. Third place, great place to start from for that.
Now, we do have to remind our audience that that could change, of course, because remember, this is Group A. Group B will be coming out, so there could be drivers that out-qualify her. Indeed, there could be drivers that go faster than Cole Kleck. But Cole very much has momentum on his side. Other than a 9th place finish due to a penalty at race 1 at Sonoma, I mean, he's been hard to catch.
He has been. He's kind of been the pace setter of this GT3 Cup field. So I think no matter what racetrack we look to, you got to look at that number 211, and you're going to have to beat him if you want to stand on top.
Looks like Pratt has had a lap deleted for shortcutting turn 4. So as we watch the drivers carry on, you got to make sure and stay within the track limits. Now, in the meantime, Lalu is just barely ahead of Demir Hott.
I was just noticing that too, and we've had some very, very close times throughout the Cayman qualifying sessions, throughout the West qualifying sessions, and right now Lalu is 6/1000ths of a second ahead of Hott.
And that is within class, so that's for 2nd and 3rd in the 992 Pro-Ams, but it's 3rd and 4th overall. They're still out on track from what I'm seeing right now. See Josh Conley emerging from pit lane and getting out there to try and set a time. We're still waiting for Darren Fens and Patrick Womack as well to set a time, but I don't see Patrick on course yet. Fens, though, I know has returned to the circuit recently, and in fact, I think he just set a time. So I think he is on the board at this stages. Now we get shots of Therese Lalu. It's always hard to miss her car, if anything. She has dubbed this Dory.
I like that. I think it's a great scheme out here, and honestly, if we look throughout the entire Porsche paddock, a lot of the female drivers have some really, really cool schemes, and Ashley, even your scheme over there in Carrera Cup is pretty neat.
Yeah, that was all Victoria's idea and her vision. She actually, both Lonnie and I have the same livery with the Be Your Own Hero program, and it's to inspire really anyone to go after their dreams and to believe in themselves fully and invest in yourself and be your own hero. So it's super cool. We have our superheroes across the hood and the door. So yeah, Therese, her car looks amazing as well. So it's just really cool to see so many fast women out there and showing some personality.
It's almost like they're bringing a little bit of style to our sport, Joe.
Exactly.
Someone's got to do it.
Yeah, admittedly, Joey and I are probably not the ones to ask for him. But coming down into the braking, can Therese maybe get closer to Kleck here? Because as we said, it was, I think, about 1.4 seconds between her and Cole. So if she can shorten that up, there'll be less chances that somebody will wedge themselves into that second spot. But she's going slow now through turn 13, so I think she's backing off.
Yeah, I would consider this either a cool down lap to bring the car in, or maybe just one of these laps that the driver takes to cool everything down in the car on the track, kind of give a little bit of a mental reset out there. In qualifying, you're always trying to go at the limit. So sometimes as a driver, you yourself need to take a lap break, either bring it down pit lane, or like we're seeing Therese do, just a real slow lap, making sure she's not getting in the way of any of her competitors, and then potentially try another.
Looked like a bit of a slide there coming through 19 from the car we're watching here and down into the line. Trying to make out who this is exactly. 248, I think, of Vettiello.
Frank.
Yeah. So Frank does not go quicker that time by. He's another one that's close to the next car up, about 6/100ths of a second to catch Gaffarov. And wow, actually, it's another 7/100ths of a second up to Tim Kesman. So my goodness, 9th, 10th, and 11th have nothing between them.
And that second name that you mentioned, Kesman, is important for this car that we're watching on screen because those are both 992 Masters class cars, competitors. So if maybe we can watch Frank gain a little bit, a couple tenths, he might actually jump up the board a few positions.
All it takes is just a little bit here, a little bit there around a track this long, although he looks a little out of sorts there, Joey.
Yeah, it's such a tricky racetrack. We call it a technical racetrack, and a lot of these corners just feed one after another, and if you find yourself lost out there at all, you're not in a good position. You're probably lifting off of the gas and figuring out exactly where you need to go. I think that's just kind of a combination of those corners rapidly approaching and maybe being a little bit behind.
Frank's been very consistent this season. Came home with his best finish at the first race with 4th, but hasn't been in the top 5 since. Although it's a 7th, and an 8th on the other 3 events so far. So he's at least bringing it home in that mid-pack. Oh, but the car's going to slide around facing the wrong way out of turn 12. Should be able to get this going. Question is, who else is coming up behind him?
It's just parked right there on the exit of turn number 12. Like we saw, just a completely innocent spin on the brakes at the apex there. And Ashley, you can probably talk about that because you've got a ton of experience in these cars. And I actually see another car off down there at turn number 12, almost in the gravel on the other side of the racetrack. So it could even be something on the fluid on the racetrack that we're not seeing. But how important is that you're standing on the brakes, all the weight's on the front end, but you still got to keep the grip on the back.
He's beached. That driver is beached. They're trying to get out of the gravel, and unfortunately they're just barely in it. That is Shermer in the 219, who has found himself done, which means we will see the red flag for this session, and that will end it. He's opening the door, surely, and there it is. Red flag is out. No time left to restart this one, so qualifying for Group A is over.
Crucially, though, I don't see any huge skid marks coming through here, so maybe he just kind of outbraked himself down there at the turn 12 zone and unfortunately found himself in the gravel.
It's a real shame because it looks like it's a very narrow strip in there, Ashley, so he must have just maybe slowed it down at just the wrong amount of time.
Yeah, it doesn't look like there's any fluid down there because I saw a few other drivers go through cleanly. So, I mean, that's just a tricky brake zone. You can kind of see from this drone shot as well. It's a little bit bumpy. It starts to go downhill sort of halfway through the brake zone and all the way down to the apex. So, yeah, the timing of your brake release there, or maybe if you have a hair too much rear brake bias, sometimes that can cause the rear to be a little bit squirrely in the back there. So, it's just one of those brake zones that you always are challenging because you're coming off of this really long straightaway and it's very tempting to want to charge into there, but you have to be patient and make sure you're still using your reference points each lap.
And I feel too at turn number 12, because it's such a slow corner, a lot of the drivers feel like they can keep and maintain that brake pedal pressure all the way to apex, right? There's not necessarily a huge wall on the outside there, so a lot of the drivers will hold that brake pedal pressure and ultimately have a little bit too much in the rear and around it comes.
Well, that is, as I said, going to end our qualifying session for Group A. So this is the results. Remember, this could change in overall once we're done with B, but Cole Kleck is your fastest in that Pro-Am. Caden Kelly fastest in the Masters. They are P1 and P2. Therese Lalou is third with Demir Hott in fourth. Bloom will start in fifth, Todd Treffert in sixth, and Conley seventh. And you've got Mike Mim, P8, Tim Kesman in ninth, and Gaffarov in 10th. After that, it's going to be Frank Vitiello in 11th, Poole in P12, Thomas Herb in 13th, Alex Pratt in P14, and Shermer in 15th, but his 2 fastest laps will get deleted. Fens, the Invitational car, looks like he'll be slotted 16th with Momac not setting a time. Now, we are going to have a short break. We'll be back with more qualifying action here in the Porsche Sprint Challenge North America GT3 Cup with Group B.
Experience the ultimate thrill, Porsche GT Track Day, where passion meets performance on some of North America's most legendary racetracks. Designed exclusively for Porsche owners, this is your chance to unleash the full potential of your vehicle in a motorsport environment. Drive the same circuits as professional racers, on the same weekend as Porsche Sprint Challenge events. Where will your Porsche take you? With limited space, every Porsche GT Track Day ensures a premium, exclusive experience. You'll get nearly 3 hours of track time, starting with reconnaissance laps, progressing through lead-follow sessions, and culminating in exhilarating open laps. Plus, strap in for heart-pounding hot laps with a professional race driver.
I thought I was fast. Didn't resemble anything that I've ever done.
Beyond the track, immerse yourself in VIP hospitality, premium viewing areas, and exclusive paddock access where you can witness Porsche Sprint Challenge teams in action. Spots are limited. Scan the QR code now to reserve your place at Porsche GT Track Day.
It's hard to contain your excitement when you get something you've really wanted. Like the gold standard in automotive protection, WeatherTech floor liners. With deep sculpted channels and laser measured for total protection in the front, back, and even up the sides.
Dad, you're going viral.
What? WeatherTech me.
So don't be shy, enjoy. Order your premium American-made products at WeatherTech.com.
Welcome back to qualifying in Porsche Sprint Challenge North America by Yokohama. The 992 Cup cars have qualifying Group B heading to the track right now. Group A has already had their times down, and now we see how these drivers compare. I'm Joe Peak with Joey Atterbury and Ashley Freiberg once again. I want to ask you two each to kind of give your thoughts on this one. We've now seen the one session. What's the big thing you noticed out of that, Joey?
Well, the heat is going to play a factor in everybody's laps out here. And the top of the board, remember, 209s is, I think, what these fast GT3 Cup cars are chasing right now. And a little bit of a bottleneck, Ashley. You know, every driver kind of approaches qualifying different. But in my opinion, I don't want to be following a train of cars.
Yeah, I would definitely just pull out of that line and just go to the back. I would try to find my own clear space because, yeah, I mean, in qualifying, you're trying to find your best personal lap. So if you have someone else maybe impeding your lap, even if you think that they're faster, they might make a mistake somewhere. So it's always good to find some super clear track, and this track is plenty long for it.
Yeah, I'm a bit surprised that we have so many that are kind of going so slowly out on this outlap because it does take long to get laps in, so you don't want to waste too much time. If you are just joining us and haven't heard it yet, the two different classes on your tower are the Masters, that's going to be those blue boxes, and the Pro-Ams are going to be the black boxes. Now, it's obviously heavily weighted towards the Masters in this session, so they're going to have a lot more to fight for. But we're mostly watching out for Alan Metney down in those Pro-Ams to see how he can do in comparison to Cole Kleck, who set the fastest lap in Group A. And as Joey said, we believe it was a 209.2 or thereabouts for his best time. So we'll try and compare that. Melito and Lap can definitely get in the mix, though based on their pace previously this season, we're not expecting them to be fighting for pole, but you never know. We'd be pleasantly surprised if they found themselves up there in this one. So keep your eye on this space to see where that winds up. But as for that Masters class, I know one thing one of the drivers talked to me about last season, Ashley, is that that Masters class last season, I think it's the same this season, is the biggest class of anything in Porsche Sprint Challenge North America. It is heavily contested.
Yeah, not only is it a lot of cars, but there's a lot of talent as well. There's a lot of drivers that are super quick, so it's really cool to see, you know, both classes really being strong in this series.
Watch out for Scott Blent. We've started calling him the Iron Man because anytime we get these multiple series in one weekend, he literally signs up for all of them. He's mainly contesting North America, but this gives him an opportunity to get more track time. And he's already been out for the USA West Series, setting qualifying for that. So he's had track time compared to a lot of these other drivers in these conditions this afternoon to try and set your quickest lap as we watch that Ruckus Racing car head down the hill out of 1 into 2.
Speaking of the lap times, Scott was one of the only cars that I saw break that 2:10 in terms of that lap time. He was down in the 209s in that West qualifying session that you were just mentioning, Joe. So I think if we're looking at the top of the board, you'd mentioned Kleck at a 209. Well, this Ruckus Racing machine plenty fast to go and grab potentially that provisional pole position. We'll just have to see what this bright yellow 245 can do.
And it's David Williams that's trying to chase him in the championship right now. Separated by quite a few points just because David had some poor results at Sonoma last time. Needs to bounce back. Whereas Scott Blend has been on the podium every single race so far here in the North America 992 Cup Car Series. And he'll see if he can try and keep up with that bright yellow machine and deny him that pole in the Masters, which we're not sure if he will have that because we have to remember we had another car that was quick in the Group A as well. Meanwhile, Metney is going purple in the Pro-Am category on this first lap.
Yeah, and Metney is just basically 2 cars in front of Scott Blend, who we're watching right now, so his lap time will pop up relatively soon here as Scott rounds through this incredibly slow and technical, what is turn number 15 section, also known kind of as the stadium section here at COTA. And now you really stand on the gas, drive your way through this triple apex right-hander. And then the track starts to fall away towards turn number 19, actually, not 20. It's the final corner here. See how Scott is able to navigate that very nicely on the apex, and then, of course, on the exit, using all of that exit curb and the paint around turn number 20. And Metney's first time, a 209.0.
Yeah, I'm curious to see how he will stack up to everybody else, because it certainly looks like he's ready to take the fight to Cole Kleck in this one. We're looking for the time of Caden Kelly to be beat in the Masters in the meantime, so that's what Blend needs to go for. He's only a quarter of a second slower than what we saw in Metney on that first timed lap, so he's definitely in the hunt for that pole in the Masters category.
And I haven't seen a 208 lap time yet. Maybe this black number 298 will be able to deliver it here in qualifying session. Look at how aggressive he is up and over those curbs and now down the hill, charge it towards turn number 11. Arguably one of the most important corners here at COTA. You have to nail this corner exit in order to gain that lap time, that top speed down the back straightaway.
I think, based on what we can remember here of that first session, that it is Blend that is quicker than Kelly already in this session. John Gilliland up there and showing some speed, but he's got to make up 1.7 seconds to get to the to the overall pole sitter, so maybe about 1.5 up to Scott Blend in his class. Metney around turn 12 and into the stadium section now, trying to go ever quicker. Can he beat that 208 marker? He is purple in the second sector, but first sector was not his personal best.
Yeah, and he takes more of what I'm going to call a traditional autocross line through turn number 15, kind of not letting the car drift out all the way. I actually prefer that here in qualifying. You don't need to leave the door completely open, just kind of carve the car around that corner. Like you said, purple sector 2. He's got one corner remaining, and this lap looks pretty smooth so far.
Can he go down to the 208s for the first time this weekend? At least in the qualifying we've seen of any of the Cup cars. He'll cross the line, and yes, he did. 208.9, goes even faster, while behind him, John Gilliland does not improve.
My only critique is these are 992 cars, not a .996 car that Metney has on the board at a 208.996. So just going to have to change that chassis around a little bit, but talk about a smoking time from that 298, a great lap.
Yeah, just really impressive. And Ashley, you've been a little bit quiet over there. I know, whoa, as Gilliland definitely misses the corner, so that lap is going to get deleted. But one thing that has struck us, especially with these endurance races, we've been seeing a number of these Carrera Cup drivers kind of coming down from that series and sort of moonlighting here in the Sprint Challenge.
Yeah, both Alan and Scott race in Carrera Cup, and they do a great job. They're definitely super competitive in the series, so it's really cool to see Alan running these lap times. You can see he is in full attack mode and really, really precise with his driving, so he's doing such a great job. Actually, he's slowing it down now, so he's feeling pretty satisfied with his laps.
Wonder if we'll see him park it then after that one. Again, we have to remember, he doesn't have to worry about Scott Blend so much, although Blend could be gridded in front of him. He's not fighting him for points. Tony Melito doing a great job up there in fourth, but still nearly 2 seconds off of Alan Metney at this stage. It is a blindingly fast lap from the 298 as he slots in behind Gilliland, who, as we saw, missed one of the corners. So John obviously not on a flyer at this stage. He's probably backed off himself. That's a very good lap from Laura Eli, I'm realizing as well. She's managed to get up to fifth.
211.33 for Laura in that number 209 car as we continue to watch Gilliland go around the racetrack here. And you had mentioned that Metney was off the pace. I wouldn't be surprised if he automatically just brings it down pit lane. Remember, we saw Kleck at a 209.2-ish in terms of the Group A qualifying, and Metney put down a 209.0 and a 208.9, so I'm sure the team has told him.
There you go. You can see the marker next to Metney's name on the left side. That means he has entered pit lane. And so is Scott Blend. No wonder, probably conserving some energy after he's going to have to get back out early in the morning and do lots of races as well as some practice getting ready for the endurance challenge a little bit later this weekend.
Gilliland is able to nail the apex there through that Sector 1 S section as we watch a couple more of these cars cross the start-finish line. This is that 270 car of white out there as he approaches turn number 1. A little bit early there in terms of the turn-in on that Good Boy Vodka number 270. Now just got to feel your way through this S section.
Yep, sporting that Good Boy Vodka livery. Here as he takes the car down through the S's left and then right, trying to climb as much of those apex curbs as he can, just right over the center of them to keep the car from bouncing as they hit them. And then it starts to head back uphill into 7 and into 8.
You climb this little itty-bitty hill here. The drivers are hugging the right side, and then you got to stand on the gas right here at the very top, because you got to drive yourself all the way down to what is turn 11 and get that launch off of that corner exit. And once again, we see the 270 just kind of creep towards those apexes a little bit. I was kind of hinting at it, but Ashley, as a driver, the track all of a sudden widens up going into those corners.
Yeah, it's super inviting to want to turn in early there in turn 11. Same thing in turn 1. It's because of the shape of the track visually. It just looks like you want to turn. So you really have to force yourself not to do it. It's super challenging no matter how many laps you have here because the track is so wide. It seems like the apex is so far away. But yeah, I mean, ultimately, if you start creeping in a little too early, you're just making your radius of the corner a little bit tighter, and it's harder to roll more speed.
We haven't seen Charles since the Sebring round as he took a pass on Sonoma. Comes back to the track to try and improve on the results of those first 2 races. Currently in 13th in this group. His quickest lap sitting at a 2:15.3. So looking at his sector times, I'm not seeing personal best improvements. So I'm not sure if we'll see him jump up the order. Let's see what the final sector holds as he comes up to Andretti.
Always an important corner here as it leads you out onto this little front straightaway here. I do say little because it's not a huge front straightaway at COTA. Back straightaway is definitely quite a bit longer, but just the way that turn 1 is shaped with that hugely wide entry as well as the uphill, drivers can be very, very aggressive in this brake zone right here. And Joe, this was the driver that you were just mentioning. This is Laura Eli in that number 209 car with the big old ram on the side of it.
Exactly. The Black Sheep Racing team that she runs, and they have a lot of fun over there, especially with their branding, that's for sure. And she's hopped over from the USA West Series last season to compete over in the North America to see how she stacks up amongst this group. So far, so good in Group B, like we said, about 6th overall and 4th in the Masters class right now. To catch Joel Johnson, it's only going to be a 1/10 of a second, and she'll get one more spot in her class.
Yeah, and not too far off of the other animal car, Gilliland, out there. And if I remember correctly, back at Sonoma, I think we had a battle of those spirit animals on the racetrack.
We did at one point, yes. It definitely saw a bit of action back and forth between them. But it looks like she'll need just a little bit to try and find a spot ahead of John's car. As right now, I think there's something in the realm of about half a second between her and Gilliland's number 280. Coming down to the braking zone here at turn 12, looking for that apex, and looks like she might not be on a flyer.
No, I'm looking at her first sector time over here. It didn't look like it was setting anything on fire. In fact, it looked to be about 4 or 5 seconds off. So I think that Laura is either taking this once again as a cool down lap and probably bringing it into pit lane, or maybe just finding another little clean piece of racetrack out there, cool herself down, cool the car down, and then go back at it again. These are things that drivers have to go through. Obviously that they're talking to their team. Where's the gaps? You know, how am I looking on the board? Do I need to put in another lap? Those are all conversations that the driver is having with the team right now.
Still got 5 minutes left, so certainly laps available on the board if you want to try and continue on. As we have talked about in the past, some drivers just electing to save their equipment, save their energy, and pitting early. So staying out, I think that was just a cool down lap to try and get the car prepared for a new one here for Laura Eli as we check in behind her as well. We've still got about half the field out on track at the moment.
You know, I want to talk to the race car driver a little bit more, get her opinion on some more of these COTA features. Now, we talked about those orange bread box curbs, sausage curbs, whatever you want to call them, but this racetrack also has those heavily stepped alligator curbs. Does that really affect these cars at all?
Yeah, for sure. So that curbing is the red and white stripe curbing that you're talking about, and it really depends on how you're loading the car and the tire on those curbs and in what part of the corner. So certainly, like here, this driver's going through turn 8. You can see his outside tires are just inside of those alligator curbs, because if you put your tires on top of them, you lose a lot of grip. The car is really bouncing around on them. So you just have to be smart on where you're placing the tire when.
This is Dan Ammon that we're watching and the Mobile One machine. Dan also does some interesting stuff here, Ashley, because he's one of the few, I think the only one this year, who is running in both the Caymans and the 992 Cup cars. What are the main differences for our viewers between these two different classes?
Yeah, that's a good question. I haven't driven the Cayman before, so I don't entirely know the differences, but I do know that driving the 992 Cup car is very unique in of itself. So when you're bouncing back and forth between two cars, you almost have to compartmentalize it in your head as a driver. And at the same time, you learn a lot by driving multiple cars as well, and certain tools can apply as you're crossing over. So it's both a benefit and sometimes can hurt, but it looks like he's doing great with it and having fun with it.
That was White trying to get out of the way, Joey. I couldn't tell. It looked like he may have held Dan up just a little bit there, but we'll see what the clock says once he crosses the line.
I think he was okay. He was able to kind of tuck out of the way of that turn number 15 exit, and Dan was able to accelerate out of that corner. So whether Dan lifted or not, we're about to find out. Current lap time of 2:13.531. In terms of this time, it doesn't look like it is going to improve on the board. So to your point, might have gotten held up just a touch.
Yeah, just a bit. And he actually has enough time here that he could take a bit of a slower lap and come back around for one final flyer if he chooses to, but it does look like he's on it right now, so I don't think he has slowed down at this stage, at least by appearances, coming around through the S's once again. Just amazes me how much they can get away with on the insides of some of these corners as he tightens it up, coming up through 6 and into 7. Watching from that Yokohama blimp, really giving us a good idea of the geometry of these corners.
And remember, it's so important. You can't forget that when they're kind of jumping over these apex curbs like we saw in Sector 1, the loaded tires are not leaving the ground, right? If anything, they're hitting the inside tires on those curbs, probably straddling them all together, so that way they don't even feel those orange curbs out there. However, if you miscalculate your car placement, like we've heard Ashley say, car placement is so important on this place, it'll send you for a ride if you miss it.
Yeah, for sure. And even though it looks like driving straight through the S's is easier, the S's are still incredibly technical in terms of how you're using the pedals. You're still using the brake as you go through the S's. You're modulating the throttle as well and your turn-in point. So it is still very much precision driving, even though it looks like, oh, they're just cutting straight through it. It's actually still super, super challenging just because of the shape of the track.
Watching our time and in scoring, I'm not seeing green sectors from Dan this time. However, Williams and Cron both having personal best second sectors. Could see them jump up. They're 5th and 6th in the Masters class in this group right now. For those that weren't with us earlier, we had Group A, so that was half the field here in the 992 Cup, putting their times in, and then we'll combine all these times to see how each driver stacks up. Oh! That's interesting. Dan looking like he was going to pit in. I don't know what the rules are on that, if there's a commitment line, Joey.
Well, but even as a driver, so obviously just a little bit of miscommunication. Probably thought that the session was out of time, and the team was saying, no, you got time to go around again, possibly improve your lap time. But the only problem that I saw with it is that it didn't optimize the run out of turn number 20. So you're kind of starting the lap on the back foot. And let's just kind of talk our way through the S's here, because Ashley said driving through the S's, even though it looks straight, is not straight. Little bit of a breathe off the gas right here, and then you got to jump on the brakes to balance the car. You see it slow down, and then once again, balancing the car, lifting off of the throttle, making sure the weight is on the front end of the car, and then once again, a little bit of tap of the brakes through that next sector, and we've got the checkered flag out.
That will officially end the session. However, drivers on a hot lap can complete them. You can see we have plenty of them in pit lane already, so those drivers are now officially done and their time has been locked in. But Gilliland, Williams, Cron, Bowden, Ammon, and Wichard are still on the circuit according to our timing and scoring, so they can all manage to improve. This is Reinhold Cron that we see on the screen right now coming down into turn 11, and he has not improved on the first sector, so he needs to pick it up on these next two.
Yeah, just kind of looking at the times directly in front of him. Incredibly stacked field with Williams and Laura Eli just a couple of tenths up the road here. Let's see if you can kind of put together the back half of this lap here. The first half, relatively high speed, but now it's coming up to this incredibly slow stadium section.
We heard Ashley talk about the precision needed through here as well. Drivers trying to not lose time through these hairpins as he just switches back and forth. So far, Reinhold Cron, as we said, was not quick in the first sector, and he's not improving on the second sector either. So I'm not sure, Ashley, if we're going to see him jump up.
Yeah, it almost looks like on that second sector he might have started a cool down lap there, so we might actually see him head into pit lane.
Yeah, I think you're right. It doesn't look like he's really hustling the car at the moment. Yeah, it doesn't even track out all the way coming through the triple apexer. So this is where pit entry is right here. And yep, that is a beeline right down into pits. Reinhold's done. Williams did not improve that last lap as he stays put 5th in class. Ammon as well there in 9th, and Wichard in 12th. So Mark Bowden is going to be our last one to the line, and I think he may have just taken it. Indeed he did. No quicker on that one. Now we don't have the times combined yet, so this is just your order for Group B, but Alan Metney has managed to absolutely smash the field with a 2:08.9, taking overall pole and pole in the Pro-Am. Scott Blend pole, at least in this group, in the Masters. So that is our Solaris flying lap for those two. John Gilliland third amongst them, as Melito was 4th and Johnson 5th. And it's Laura Eli P6 and David Williams in 7th. Reinhold Cron, P8 for him. Bowden in 9th. Top 10 rounded out by Eric Lapp. From there, it is Grady Willingham in 11th. Dan Ammon 12th. Chiacchetti 13th. And White in 14th. Wichard P15. Manship and DeJesus were not classified in this session. This will wrap up our competition for today, but we've got action starting bright early tomorrow morning. Tune in at 8:40 p.m. Central, or a.m. Central rather, for our first race of the day with the North America Caymans.